Let's talk now matters basic education. 17 minutes after 7 o'clock, we've invited the Minister of Basic Education who will be delivering her budget vote later on today. And there isn't a shortage of challenges in the sector as we look towards a brighter future for our children. Take any from a shortage of teachers to inadequate funding, the stark reality of pit latrines, limited access to early childhood development programs. These are the hurdles the minister must prepare to jump over as she unveils her vision. She joins us now from Cape Town. Minister, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good morning, Bongani, and good morning to the listeners of 702.
Let's start with some of the things you have committed to in the past. Was that app that you told us would get, or at least help get rid of pit toilets? I think your own self-imposed deadline was the 31st of March this year. That's obviously come and gone, and yet the battle against this dangerous and degrading sanitary issue is still ongoing.
Yes, Bongani. So, of course, the March deadline of 31st of March, first, it wasn't self-imposed, but you'll recall that the president had committed in the SONA before that the audit was done in 2018 and many years had gone by, and that we really needed to really move fast and with pace to get rid of that backlog. And yes, of course, I would have loved to have reported to South Africa that we have eradicated 100% of that backlog. We are currently sitting at 97%, and as I committed, we're not going to stop until that backlog is cleared. And even then, we want to make sure that we utilize multiple strategies to make sure that whatever other unsafe infrastructure that exists out there is dealt with. And that's part of the reason, as you said, we launched even an app that says to communities, help us identify where there are infrastructure challenges. And so this is infrastructure, Bongani. What I'm trying to say is a forever moving target. And there's never a time where you feel like you have arrived, because ultimately schools, 24,000 of them, require you to consistently maintain them, upgrade them at all times.
I say self-imposed, of course, because it is a government goal, a government set itself. Part of the criticism, you've mentioned that 2018 audit, part of the criticism even at that time was that that was outdated information. Would you have, I suppose, in front of you, the number of schools that need intervention? You talk about 97%. What is that remaining 3%?
So look, I mean, the identified schools at the time were sitting at 3,900 that were identified back in 2018. And as I indicated, and I'm sharing this with you today, is that we have cleared 97% of those 3.9 facilities. And so, yes, the progress has been slow, but when I came into office a year ago around this time, we were sitting at 92%. I've indicated the team that in spite of some of the challenges like construction mafia and the rest, we have to push along, because it's unconscionable to me that there are children and teachers who still go to schools that still have pit toilets. It's about dignity and about safety, woman.
So without parking too much on this issue, so what you're saying is 97% of the numbers from the 2018 audit, and that's not to say there haven't since then been more schools and more facilities who might still now have the problem.
That is why I'm saying to you that it's important that we clear this backlog, but we consistently run audits all the time, because this is a forever moving target. And my concern is that 2018 is far away. And what other infrastructure challenges do we still now have? So that's why I'm saying that once this is done, we will do another audit.
Let's go to the classroom and learning that takes place there. We're still told 80% of grade 3 learners still can't read for meaning in any language. Do we have a national reading plan? Do we have a plan to deal with this?
Absolutely, Bongani. As you articulate, we took an international benchmarking test a couple of years ago, which showed us that this is a national crisis. And my view is that not to underplay the value of matric results, is that we really should put as much emphasis as we do on matric results as we do on the readiness of learners to be able to either get into grade 1, or to be able to pass this benchmarking test in grade 4. Because if you don't get the foundations of learning, which is why this entire, even the budget speech today, you will hear, is all about how do we invest in the foundations of learning to make sure that children can read and write for meaning and count at a much earlier age. Because if we know that if we miss them at the foundation, that they are unlikely to catch up. So when you ask me, do we have a strategy in place? Yes, we've got reading strategies, but for me, I think the best strategy is to reorientate the system, almost turn it on its head and say, this is actually the high stock. The value here is, can children, are they ready when they get to grade R? Are they ready for grade 1? Can they read at that point? And I think if we focus there, we're going to start to see some of these things take care of themselves.
You say not to underplay matric results. I recall with some curiosity, your party specifically consistently said that the matric results do not really reflect the entire experience of schooling in South Africa, particularly, of course, because of those high dropout rates, particularly at secondary level. That remains a major concern, but so many of the factors that drive it are beyond the system, as it were. Things like teenage pregnancy, the need for learners to support families. How are we tackling that one?
Yeah, no. I think it would be a mistake to say that matric results are not an indicator, but the point I'm making is that they should not be the only indicator. And I think perhaps in South Africa we have fallen into the trap of believing that the health of the education system is the amount or the number that we see at the end of or at the beginning of each year. And my view is that we should be stress testing the system throughout. We should be asking ourselves, are 6-year-olds reading? Are 10-year-olds reading for meaning? And are we doing well in the international benchmarking tests? And yes, of course, Bongani, you also asked the question, but what about issues that are beyond your control? What about things like school safety, teenage pregnancies? And that's why even within the DBE, within the department, we've got a unit that we call it support and care, because we can't simply say ours is to deliver quality teaching and learning, and therefore that's that. So we have to help schools, SGBs come up with policies on how do you deal with a child that has fallen pregnant in the school? How do you integrate them back so that we don't lose them to the system? We are sitting at what we call a 63% throughput rate, which is the number of learners who start in grade R all the way to grade 12. It's consistent with other middle-income countries, but I would like us to increase that. And part of that is really augmenting some of our support programs.
Teaching isn't quite the profession it used to be, is it? Not everyone now wants to enter it. Are we facing a looming shortage?
No, Bongani, and that's sometimes the perhaps error that most people make. We don't have a shortage of teachers. What we do have is a challenge of finances, where we are not able to hire as many teachers as we would like. The reason being is that provinces are sitting as the primary employers. Provinces are sitting with already maxed out budgets for compensation of employees. So there are teachers who are sitting at home who have qualifications. And then, of course, we're sitting about 500,000 teachers in the schooling system. I would like us to increase that so that we can make sure that there are more available teachers, so that we can see smaller classroom sizes in our schools.
Let's talk, Minister, about the legacy of apartheid in our education system. That remains a challenge. You are now tasked with formulating regulations that will give effect to the Bela Act, a piece of legislation your party has been firmly opposed to. How are you navigating that, and how's that looking?
Well, we're doing very well, Bongani. We are, in the coming weeks, we're going to be publishing the regulations for public comment, and South Africans are going to be able to have an opportunity to comment on that. Over and above that, we've already started the work of onboarding provinces, schools, SGBs on some of the new legal framework that is now, brought about by the Act. So I think we're moving with pace. And I think, for me, what has been really encouraging Well, I mean, the fact that I think the politics around this piece of legislation has since decimated. I think now, which is what I'd really wanted, that we need to focus on how will this piece of legislation really improve the quality of learning and teaching in our schools. Things like admissions, things like language policies, things like corporal punishment being outlawed. These are some of the things that we really need legal clarity on. And so I'm glad that the system finally has a legal compass from which to operate.
But as you know, some of the contentions are around the independence of the schools and particularly governing bodies. As I said, your party is firmly opposed to this piece of legislation, yet now you must give effect to it. How do you decide, even philosophically, when you disagree with what its intentions are, to then give practical meaning to it?
I can't get philosophical, Bongani. I have to be guided by the Constitution, which says that which I took an oath of office for, and essentially said I'm going to abide by the laws of the country. And regardless of what my party may have agreed or not agreed to, the reality is that I'm a minister of the South African government, and so philosophy aside, now we have to give practical implementation to this piece of legislation. And I'm saying to you, personally, as I'm sitting here as somebody who's responsible for education policy, that is in some of the provisions of this piece of legislation are incredibly important to give legal clarity to the sector.
Minister, it's many months later, it's many moons later, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So why weren't you at the signing?
My presence at the signing was neither here nor there. It doesn't mean that my not being there was meaning that I was not going to implement.
But the optics, right? The optics said something, no?
Sure, the optics said something, but the government of national unity and the parties that are signatory to it needed to find ways and means to deal with the conflict resolution, and at that time they hadn't. And so unfortunately, Bongani, those are the complexities of a coalition government.
Good luck today. We'll certainly be listening. Minister of Basic Education, Sivuwe Gwagube, giving her budget vote in Parliament.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.